Hello, today we have an interesting one for you. It's from a little known company. I'm not sure that they're particularly well known around. Well, let's put it this way. Let's have a look at their logo, see what you reckon. Yeah, you might have seen that around somewhere. It's a company that's been quite around for a long time, but in the UK they've had a fairly low profile. They don't like to push themselves forward. They just sort of get on with it. But I tell you what, they get on with it quite well. Look at all these products they've made. They've made aeroplanes, and they've made cars, and they've made like hi-fis and video recorders and air conditioning units. And having done all that, let's see what we've got here. This is a Type 1 tape. Well, at least that's what it says on it. I'll let you decide what sort of tape it is at the end. Let's get stuck in. Looking at the outside here, you can see it says Black Diamond in there. Well, I wonder what that's all about. Let's have a look at the next bit. There's not a lot on here, but it's all written in different languages. Let's look at the English bit here. It says tough and reliable for repeated recording and playback, suitable for use in all types of cassette deck. Of all the tapes I've reviewed, this is the first one where the tear strip has actually worked. So this is what we see. It's understated. It's just got the words Mitsubishi on there and high output, low noise. No cassette logo as such. And it's subtle. Like I say, understated. Can't get across the shell feels nice, the case feels nice, and the J card's adequate. It's not exactly going to blow your socks off, but you know, it's nice. That's the word. Okay, now before we get too far into this, what I thought I'd do is I'll explain to you the way I'm going to do this one. A little bit of a technical spec, see what it's actually producing, finish up with an opinion as to whether or not it sounds okay. And obviously you'll have been able to hear it as we go. I'm not going to put it in a cassette deck that you can't afford and you would never find, and you're not going to find out that if you had the best cassette deck in the world, this will produce you reasonable sounds. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in a standard run-of-the-mill fixed bias deck, the sort of deck that any one of you could buy, or any fixed bias deck, as long as it's to specification, results that you're going to get would be similar to mine. Now the thing is, because I always use the same cassette deck, it does mean you can compare one of my tests to any other one of my tests and the results will be valid, because if the tape is giving a better result, you will get a better result. I don't fiddle about with the machine. It is always done at the same settings, so the results are comparable. Oh, and if the results are that it comes out a little bit low level because I haven't got the adjustment on the machine to be able to tweak it up, guess what? You can turn the volume up. It's magic. These things are not as difficult as some people try to make out. Anyway, let's get stuck into it and enjoy. The thing about Mitsubishi is you know that it's going to be a good product because they don't make bad products. They might make mediocre products which are nothing to be particularly excited about, but what they don't do is make bad products. Most of what I've ever come across with Mitsubishi is very, very functional and reliable and good. Having set the expectations, I noticed this one's made in Korea. That's not necessarily a bad thing, so let's see how we get on. Here's the Audacity trace. It gives us a clue as to what we might see. One of the first questions, is it hissy? Well, no. Minus 75 dB is where the silence is sitting, which is pretty good. Why are we worrying about the buff and the ting? Well, I'll tell you, the buff is the ability for the bass response to be clean. And the ting, well, it's exactly the same, but it's the ability for it to have a high frequency clarity. Most sound is between those 2 points. So what you want it to be able to do both, and that's what it's proving. Where we want to go by Patricos, Dynamic and Clean. I think you can agree that sounded pretty good. The clarity of that shrill drum thump is absolutely amazing. And don't forget, this is only a type 1 tape. If you're marking it out of 10, make sure you're marking it out of the right 10. This is a type 1, not a type 2. Let's get on to the next bit then. We'll have a look and see. I'm not going to do the -20 this time for the simple reason that it's going to sound just as good but a bit quieter. But we'll have a look at the charts now and see how the charts are doing and see why that sounds so good. The colour of this tape is fairly dark brown. It's interesting. It's a lot darker than your average ferric. These two are very similar even though they're done at different levels, which indicates a good linear tape. The pink noise shows it even better, with so much similarity between the two. They both look very respectable. So with all that looking so good, let's hope that the next bit doesn't spoil it. We're going to be looking at the actual signals, the 1K and the 3K, see what the distortion is, and then we'll see what the frequency sweep is. It should be interesting. I mentioned earlier on there is an interesting little thing on the Audacity trace. Well, this is where it starts to become apparent. When you look at this is the 1 kilohertz at 0 dB, and you can see it's got a third harmonic distortion peak, which is not that bad really, and but it's not actually hitting 0 dB. The 3 kilohertz is looking equally as respectable with just the 1 peak on the third harmonic, but it is actually hitting 0 dB. Now we look at the -20 dB figures, you can see they are absolutely beautiful, and there's no wavering. It is flat. Where it isn't the peak, it's flat. So that now brings us on to the last part of the test. That's a bit of a stress test. What I do is I drive it to approximately +5 dB. That's what the signal was originally set up for, and most tapes don't manage to hit that. They actually come back with slightly less, and this one's coming back with +1.2 dB, but it was still hit with that amount of signal, and so the results are important. And let's have a look at this. Look at it again, you can see that it's got the peak. You've got two harmonic peaks, one at 3,000 and one at 5,000, but the rest of it is pretty smooth, which means it's dealing very well with the overload. There could potentially be two reasons why it's dealing well with the overload, i.e. it's not very good at taking in the high frequencies, and so it's just squashing them, or it's just capable of dealing with the levels. I don't know which one it is at this point. Let's have a look at the frequency sweeps and we'll see what it is that's happening on here. And this is where it's important. This is where we can decide whether it's a good tape or a not so good tape. -20 dB sweeps looking pretty good with it tailing off at 18.5 kilohertz. But then look at this. This has got output at 20 kilohertz on 0 dB. I shall say that again. 20 kilohertz at 0 dB. Remember, this is only a type 1 tape. You shouldn't be getting anywhere near those sort of figures. So what does all that mean? Well, I'll tell you. It means that this is an absolutely amazing tape. It's producing an output up to 20 kilohertz. It's a type 1 ferric. It's being used in a standard deck, one that's got standard bias and is not rated particularly highly by an awful lot of the community. However, there's no way it should be having outputs at that sort of level anyway, because that's not what it says on the specification. So even TIAC don't expect it to be that good. So this tape is bringing the best out of a machine that is adequate. And that means that this is a really good tape. Now imagine what you could get out of it if you did it on a good deck that you could adjust everything up on. Absolutely brilliant. Anyway, that's it. I could make this last an awful lot longer, but I'm not going to. So that's the information you needed. You can see it, you can hear it. There's a useful video coming up here, so you might like to do that. And don't forget, if you've got any questions, any experience and any of this sort of thing, please put it in the comments and I'll get back to you. Thanks a lot. Bye bye.